Captain Alex Ryden had been traveling through the dark expanse of space for months, with nothing but the hum of his ship and the endless stars for company. Each day was a repetition of cold metal corridors and blinking lights, yet his mind remained fixed on one goal, planet Selira. It was uncharted territory, a place rumored to be beautiful beyond imagination and home to a civilization humans had never met. His mission was simple: make contact, observe, and return with knowledge. But as he approached the planet, a strange feeling gripped him, a mixture of excitement and unease. He could not shake the sense that Selira was unlike any world he had seen before. When Alex's shuttle pierced the atmosphere and landed gently on the soft silver grass, he was struck by the beauty around him. Towering trees stretched high, their leaves shimmering like liquid metal, reflecting the twin suns above. Rivers ran with a clear, iridescent glow, and flowers bloomed in patterns he had never seen, shifting colors as if they were alive. For a moment, he forgot he was on a mission. The planet was breathtaking, almost magical. But alongside the beauty was an eerie silence. Not a bird chirped, not a breeze stirred, and no signs of life stirred from the ground. Only the faint hum of the shuttle broke the stillness. Stepping out of his shuttle, Alex felt the air, strange yet breathable, brush against his skin. He took a cautious step toward the nearest structure, which looked alive, pulsing faintly with light from within. It was clearly artificial, yet it grew like the forest, organic in shape. Suddenly, he noticed movement. From behind the silver-leaved trees, figures emerged. At first, he thought it was a trick of light, but no. They were real. Tall. Elegant. Women approached, their forms graceful and fluid, their skin shimmering like the surface of a pearl. Their eyes were wide, deep, and curious, reflecting the twin sun's light in ways Alex could not describe. They did not speak at first. Instead, they watched him with an intensity that sent a shiver down his spine. It was more than curiosity. There was a hunger, a longing, and a vulnerability in their gaze, a story that seemed to stretch back over a century. Alex's heart raced. There was something here, something he had never felt before, a connection he could not yet name. One woman stepped forward. She was taller than the others, her hair floating slightly as if underwater. Her voice was soft, yet it carried authority, echoing slightly in the quiet air. It has been 105 years since we last saw a male of your kind, she said, her tone trembling with awe. Alex's mind froze. 105 years? That was longer than he could imagine. Over a century without a male? His training told him to remain professional, to observe and not interfere. Yet looking into her eyes, he felt a strange pull, a weight of responsibility he had never experienced. These women had lived an entire lifetime, and more, without someone like him. And now, for reasons he could not understand, the moment had come. The women slowly surrounded him, moving with a grace that seemed choreographed, yet natural. Alex could feel their attention like a physical force. It was overwhelming. He had trained for first contact situations, but nothing could have prepared him for this. There was no hostility, but there was intensity, emotion, and expectation. He realized this was a society built entirely by women, thriving for generations, and now his arrival disrupted a balance that had existed for over a century. Despite his training, he felt awe and a deep respect. They were not wild or uncontrolled. They were simply aware, alive, and longing in a way that transcended words. Alex nodded carefully, speaking slowly, trying to convey peace. I am Captain Alex Ryden. I come in peace. The woman who spoke first tilted her head, her eyes studying him as if trying to understand the very core of his being. Peace is not enough, she said softly, but it is a start. You have come at a time when our world waits. Alex felt the weight of her words. He did not yet know what they waited for, or how he could help, or even if he could. But deep inside, He sensed that this mission would be unlike any other. Not about politics, resources, or conquest. It was about connection, survival, and the rediscovery of something lost for over a century. As he followed the women toward the glowing city in the distance, the silence of Celira seemed to lift slightly, replaced by the quiet hum of anticipation. Alex had no idea what awaited him, but one thing was clear: nothing would ever be the same again. The city of Celira was unlike anything Alex had ever seen. The buildings seemed alive, their walls shimmering softly with colors that shifted with the movement of the women around them. Light danced across smooth surfaces, creating patterns that reminded Alex of a living painting. Every corner of the city exuded elegance and harmony, yet beneath that beauty, he sensed an undercurrent of longing. The women's gazes followed him, curious, intense, and almost pleading. They led him through winding streets, silent but for the soft sound of footsteps. No children laughed, no machines whirred. This was a city built by women for women, thriving entirely without men. Alex could feel their pride in what they had built, but also a subtle ache, like a missing note in a melody. Finally, they reached a grand hall. Its ceiling arched high above, adorned with glowing filaments that pulsed like veins. The air smelled faintly sweet, a mixture of flowers and ozone, and Alex felt an immediate calm. He noticed the walls were adorned with intricate tapestries, each one depicting generations of women working, laughing, learning, surviving. This was their history, their legacy. One of the women, the same who had spoken to him earlier, gestured for him to sit. "We have waited for someone like you," she said softly, her eyes shimmering. "For 105 years, we have carried the weight of our survival. We adapted, we thrived, but we never forgot." She trailed off, letting the words hang in the air, heavy with meaning. Alex swallowed hard, understanding that this was more than a casual greeting. Their society had endured without men, yes, but the absence had shaped every aspect of their lives. Their language, their art, their governance. Everything had been refined for survival in a single-gender world. And yet, despite their strength, there was a raw vulnerability in their eyes, a silent yearning for something lost long ago. Another woman stepped forward. Her hair shimmered like liquid silver, and her voice was musical, almost hypnotic. "You are not just a visitor," she said. "You are the first male to walk among us in over a century. Your presence changes everything, whether you intend it or not." Alex nodded slowly, feeling the gravity of her words. He had trained for first contact situations, but this was different. There was no hostility, no immediate threat. What he faced was something far more delicate, a civilization on the edge of emotional rediscovery, and he was the bridge between what had been and what could be. They showed him their homes, their workshops, their halls of learning. Alex watched as women moved gracefully, performing tasks with efficiency and elegance. Some painted, some sculpted, some tended the gardens that spread across the city. Every action seemed purposeful, every glance meaningful. Yet, in the way they looked at him, he sensed curiosity mixed with a hunger he could not ignore. A hunger for connection, for understanding, for companionship. Alex tried to remain calm, to observe and not interfere, but it was impossible. Every gesture, every word, every glance carried weight. They were not just fascinated by him as a human. They were fascinated by what he represented, a reminder of a part of life they had not known for generations. He could see it in their eyes, hope, excitement, and the quiet longing for what they had lost 105 years ago. That evening they held a ceremony of welcome. The hall was filled with soft, glowing light, and the women moved in a dance that told the story of their society. Struggles, triumphs, and the endurance of a single-gender world. Alex felt honored and overwhelmed. The dance was beautiful, but beneath its elegance he sensed a question being asked, not with words but with emotion. Could he stay? Could he help them without changing who they were? When the dance ended, the woman who first spoke to him came close, her expression serious yet gentle. "You must understand," she said. "We are strong. We do not need you to survive. But perhaps in that we need you to remember what it is to live fully, to connect, to hope." Alex nodded, his throat tight with emotion. He had arrived expecting diplomacy, observation, and maybe friendship, but he realized that what he had walked into was far more profound. These women had waited, survived, and thrived for over a century, and now he was here, not to save them, not to command them, but simply to exist among them, to witness, and perhaps to bring a spark of something long forgotten. As he looked around the hall, seeing their faces illuminated by the soft, shifting light, Alex felt a strange warmth. It was not desire, nor duty. It was recognition. They were waiting for someone, and that someone had finally arrived. His journey was just beginning, and already, the weight of its importance pressed against his chest. For days Alex explored Selera, learning the rhythm of life in a society built entirely by women. He observed their work, their rituals, and their art, marveling at how seamlessly they had adapted without men for over a century. Yet, beneath the elegance and harmony, a tension began to emerge. Not all of the women welcomed him openly. Some watched from a distance, their eyes wary, their expressions tight with caution. One afternoon, Alex was invited to a council meeting, a gathering of the elders who had governed the city for decades. The room was vast, circular, and glowing softly with bioluminescent lights. Dozens of women sat around him, their faces serene, yet serious. The air was thick with anticipation, as though his presence alone had shifted the balance of the room. "You, come among us as a stranger," said one elder, her voice steady but sharp. "And yet your arrival threatens the life we have built. For 105 years we thrived without men. Our society is complete. And now, you appear." Her gaze pierced Alex. He could see both caution and fear in her eyes. "Why should we trust you or your intentions?" Alex took a deep breath. He knew this question would define the days ahead. "I do not wish to disrupt your lives," he said carefully. "I came to understand, to learn, and to share knowledge, not to control or dominate. I know my presence may feel unsettling. I am aware of the history you carry. But I am here in peace." Some of the elders nodded, their faces softening slightly, while others remained skeptical. The tension was palpable. Alex realized that trust could not be demanded. It had to be earned. Yet, in their caution, he sensed the weight of centuries of survival. These women had built a world entirely on their own, and the idea of depending on a man, even one who meant no harm, was unfamiliar and frightening. Outside the council hall, the younger women moved closer, curious and fascinated by him. They whispered among themselves, sharing small smiles and glances, showing a mixture of excitement and apprehension. It was clear that not all shared the elders' fear. Some were eager for change, intrigued by the possibility of connection they had, not experienced for generations. Over the next several days, Alex struggled to balance his role. He participated in their daily activities, learning their customs and attempting to communicate effectively. But he could feel the invisible lines of tension everywhere he went. Some women welcomed him with warmth, laughter, and gestures of trust, while others remained distant, their eyes watchful and wary. One evening, as Alex walked through a glowing garden, he encountered Mara, an artist whose work he admired. "Do you feel it?" she asked quietly. "The pull? The hesitation? They are afraid of losing themselves, if they embrace you fully. And yet many cannot help the longing they feel." Alex nodded, understanding her words. It was not a question of survival. They had survived perfectly well without men, but survival alone was not life. Connection, understanding, and shared experience were things they had been missing for generations. His arrival had stirred something deep inside them, a mixture of hope, curiosity, and the fear of change. That night, sleep came fitfully. Alex thought of the eyes he had seen, the women who watched him with awe, longing, and caution. He realized that he was no longer just a visitor. He was a symbol, whether he liked it or not. He carried the responsibility of balancing respect for their independence with the delicate task of bridging centuries of isolation. The next morning, the elders approached him with a decision. "You may stay," said the elder who had spoken. "First, but understand this. You will not dictate our lives. You will walk among us, yes, but only as one who listens and learns. Many of us are still uncertain. Your presence awakens feelings that are unfamiliar. Do not take our caution lightly." Alex bowed respectfully. "I will honor that," he said. "I do not wish to force anything. I will walk with you, side by side, and respect your choices." For the first time, a sense of calm settled over him. He understood that this was the beginning of a delicate journey. There would be challenges, resistance, and moments of doubt. But there was also hope. Hope that through patience and understanding he could earn their trust and perhaps help them rediscover a part of life that had been dormant for 105 years. As he stepped out into the glowing city once more, Alex felt the eyes of both the wary and the curious upon him. Some watched with suspicion, some with longing, and some with hope. He knew the path ahead would not be simple, but for the first time, he felt that he had a place here, not as a conqueror but as a companion, a witness, and perhaps a bridge between worlds that had long forgotten each other. The days on Salira began to feel different for Alex. The tension that had shadowed his arrival slowly began to soften, replaced by something more delicate, more profound: connection. He walked the silver-leaved streets with the women who had first welcomed him, sharing small stories, exchanging smiles, and learning the rhythms of their lives. Each step revealed layers of their society he had never imagined: the elegance, the efficiency, and most importantly, the heart that beat quietly beneath the city's beauty. Lila, the strategist he had met early on, became his guide to their culture. She explained how decisions were made, how resources were allocated, and how the women had adapted to thrive for generations. Alex listened intently, admiring the logic, creativity, and resilience of a society built entirely by women. Yet it wasn't just her knowledge that fascinated him. It was her curiosity, her quiet laughter at his small mistakes, and the way she looked at him with a mixture of caution and warmth. Mara, the artist, brought a different kind of connection. She led Alex to her studio, a room filled with shifting colors and flowing light, where paintings seemed to move with emotion. "Art is how we speak without words," she said softly, guiding his hand across a canvas. Alex was clumsy at first, unsure of how to translate thought into movement or color, but Mara laughed gently. "It is not about skill," she said. "It is about feeling. Just feel, and let the world see you." As days passed, Alex began to feel the subtle shift in their interactions. The women's eyes, once filled with intensity and caution, now held traces of warmth and curiosity. They no longer watched him as a curiosity to be studied, but as a participant in their lives. Laughter replaced some of the tension, gentle teasing replaced cautious observation, and small touches, hand on shoulder, guiding hand through a doorway, carried a sense of trust and comfort. Yet it was not all easy. Some women still held distance, wary of the change his presence brought. Alex understood their caution. He had arrived in a world that had survived perfectly well without men for 105 years. To many, his existence challenged centuries of independence and self-reliance. But those who reached out, like Lila and Mara, showed him the beauty of bridging worlds without destroying them. One evening, as the twin moons of Salira rose over the city, Alex found himself walking through the gardens with Mara. Soft light glimmered across the petals of the strange iridescent flowers, and the air hummed faintly, alive with the quiet pulse of the planet. Mara spoke of her loneliness not as a complaint, but as a truth she had lived with for decades. "We adapted," she said, "but adaptation does not erase longing. Your presence, it reminds us of what we have missed. Connection, companionship, something human, yet new to us." Alex felt the weight of her words, the responsibility and the privilege. He was not here to replace anyone or anything. He was here to witness, to share, and to help them rediscover feelings that had been dormant for over a century. Slowly, step by step, the walls between them began to crumble. Not all at once, but in gentle, meaningful moments. They shared meals, exploring flavors Alex had never encountered. They practiced rituals together, danced beneath the soft glow of the city's light, and listened to each other's stories late into the night. Every interaction built trust, deepened respect, and sparked something greater than curiosity: bonding. Alex began to understand the nuances of their society, the delicate balance they maintained between independence and longing. He also saw that their excitement at his presence was not wild or frantic. It was alive with hope. They were no longer just survivors. They were learning to open their hearts again, to embrace life with a fullness that had been missing for decades. By the end of the week, Alex felt a sense of belonging he had never expected. He was still an outsider in many ways, but he was also part of their world in a way that mattered. The connection he shared with Lila, Mara, and others was not just emotional, it was human, a bridge across time, distance, and experience. As he stood on a balcony, watching the city glow beneath the twin moons, Alex realized something profound. He had come to Selira expecting duty and observation, but he had found friendship, trust, and the beginnings of love. And in return, the women of Selira had discovered that even after 105 years without a male, connection could still be tender, meaningful, and transformative. The harmony Alex had begun to feel on Selira was fragile. Though many women had warmed to him, there were still those who viewed his presence as a threat. Whispers followed him through the silver streets, glances exchanged in council halls, and subtle tension in meetings reminded him that not everyone embraced change so easily. One morning, he was called to the council once more. The elder who had initially questioned him sat at the head of a circular table, her expression as stern as ever. "We have lived without men for over a century," she said sharply. "We are strong, self-sufficient, and united. Your arrival awakens feelings we do not fully understand. It is dangerous." Alex nodded, remaining calm. "I understand," he said softly. "I do not seek to control or influence. I only wish to learn, to understand, and to share time with those who welcome me. I will not disrupt what you have built." Some women in the council nodded, their expressions softening, but others shook their heads. "You cannot know what your presence does to us," one woman said, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and emotion. "We are not asking for companionship. We are demanding stability, and yet our hearts betray us." Alex could feel the tension thick in the room. It was not anger exactly, but a mixture of fear, longing, and uncertainty. He realized that his existence was forcing the women of Selira to confront emotions they had carefully set aside for over a century. And some were not ready. Outside, the younger women moved freely, laughing softly, teasing him gently, showing excitement at the possibilities his presence brought. But the elder's caution was a constant reminder that the journey would not be simple. Change was never easy, and Alex had stepped into a world where centuries of survival depended on careful balance. That night, Alex walked through the gardens, the soft glow of the twin moons illuminating the silver petals. Mara joined him silently, her eyes thoughtful. "Do you feel it too?" she asked. "The fear? The hesitation? They worry about losing themselves, about letting someone else in after so long. But they also long for it. You awaken something they have hidden for generations." Alex sighed, understanding her words. It was a delicate dance, trust and caution, curiosity and fear. He could see that for some women, he was a bridge to something they had forgotten: companionship, connection, and the joy of shared experience. But for others, he was a disruption, a reminder that their independence might be influenced even subtly by his presence. In the following days, conflict became unavoidable. Small disagreements in council meetings erupted into heated discussions. Some women argued passionately that Alex should not be allowed to influence any decisions, that their society's survival depended on maintaining distance. Others countered that fear should not dictate life, that their hearts were longing for connection that could not be ignored. Alex listened quietly, never taking sides, never trying to impose his presence. Instead, he offered understanding and patience. "I do not wish to change what you are," he said gently. "I only wish to be here, to share in your lives, and to honor the choices you make." Even with his calm words, the tension remained. Some women still avoided him entirely, moving quickly past him in the halls, while others lingered, seeking his company, asking questions, or simply sharing a smile. The city had become a tapestry of emotions: fear, hope, curiosity, and longing, all intersecting in ways Alex had never encountered. One evening, an elder approached him quietly in the hall. "You must be careful," she whispered, her voice low but urgent. "Your presence is powerful. You awaken what we have buried for generations. Some may embrace it, but others may reject it violently. You carry the weight of their hearts, whether you intend it or not." Alex nodded, feeling the weight settle on his shoulders. He had known that his arrival would change Salira, but he had not realized just how deeply. His presence was not just a novelty. It was a catalyst, forcing the women to confront desires, fears, and emotions they had lived without for over a century. As he left the council, walking through the softly glowing streets, Alex realized that conflict was inevitable, but he also understood that it was necessary. The women of Salira were rediscovering parts of themselves that had been dormant for 105 years, and though fear and tension ran deep, the potential for growth, healing, and connection had never been greater. For the first time, Alex truly understood the delicate balance he would have to maintain, not to control, not to influence, but to walk alongside them, respecting their strength while helping them rediscover the fullness of life. And in that delicate space, a new chapter for Salira was beginning. After weeks of careful observation, Alex began to notice subtle changes in the women around him. The initial tension and caution had softened, replaced by curiosity, warmth, and moments of genuine laughter. It was as if his presence had begun to thaw a frost that had lingered over Salira for 105 years. Yet he understood that this progress was delicate. One wrong word or action could undo the fragile trust they had built. Lila, the strategist, became a constant companion in his journey. She taught him not just about their politics and decisions, but about their hearts and fears. "You must listen," she said one evening as they watched the twin moons rise. "Not just hear words, but feel the spaces between them. That is where truth lies." Alex realized how right she was. Many of the women did not speak their deepest emotions outright, but the longing in their eyes, the soft gestures, and the quiet smiles told stories words could not capture. Mara, the artist, showed him another side of Salira. Together they walked through her studio, a sanctuary of colors and movement. "Art is our voice when words fail," she said, guiding Alex's hand over a canvas that shimmered like liquid. "You awaken something in us that cannot be contained by tradition or duty. You remind us that life is more than survival." Alex felt a lump in his throat. Her words were not just about him. They were about a society rediscovering a part of itself that had been dormant for over a century. As the days passed, Alex found himself drawn into rituals he had not understood before. The women shared their traditions, dances, and songs, inviting him to participate not as a stranger, but as a companion. He stumbled at first, awkward and unfamiliar, yet they laughed kindly and guided him gently. Each step, each movement, was a lesson in patience, humility, and connection. One night, as they danced beneath the glowing city lights, Mara leaned close. "You see, Alex, it is not just about presence," she whispered. "It is about understanding, about being part of something without taking it over. You walk a fine line, but you have begun to walk it well." His heart ached with gratitude. This was more than acceptance. It was trust, something they had not given freely to anyone in 105. Years, Alex also began to notice change in himself. The loneliness of space travel, the isolation of months alone had been replaced by the warmth of friendship, laughter, and quiet reflection. He felt a bond forming, not just with individuals but with the society as a whole. Their trust and curiosity were gifts he had not anticipated, yet he cherished them deeply. Despite this growing closeness, there were still moments of hesitation. Some women avoided him, still wary of the change he represented. Alex never pressed them, never demanded their attention. He had learned that respect was as important as connection, and that true trust could only grow in freedom. Over time, even, these hesitant women began to observe him quietly, and Alex could see small signs of softening. An approving nod, a fleeting smile, or a glance that lingered just a moment too long. One morning, as the twin suns bathed the city in soft light, Lila approached Alex with a serious expression. "You have done more than you realize," she said. "You have reminded us that connection is not weakness, it is life. Some of us feared it, yet we cannot deny it. You have given us permission to feel, to hope, to embrace what we thought lost, forever." Alex felt the enormity of her words. His presence had become a bridge, a gentle catalyst for healing and rediscovery. He had not come to command, nor to fix, but simply to be. A reminder that life was not only about survival, but also about joy, trust, and the quiet beauty of connection. That evening, he walked through the silver-leaved gardens alone, reflecting on the journey so far. The city no longer felt foreign. It felt alive, breathing with the hearts of the women who had once guarded themselves so carefully. And in their eyes he saw a reflection of his own growth, the realization that he was not just a visitor, but a part of something extraordinary. For the first time, Alex understood that the heart of Celira was not its city, its art, or its rituals. It was the trust, hope, and courage of its people. And as he stood beneath the soft glow of the twin moons, he knew that the fragile bonds they had formed could grow into something enduring, something beautiful, if nurtured with care and understanding. The women had begun to open their hearts, and Alex had begun to understand theirs. Together, they were rewriting centuries of isolation, step by step, laugh by laugh, glance by glance. And in that quiet understanding, hope blossomed, not just for connection, but for a future neither Celira nor humanity could have imagined alone. The city of Celira glowed softly beneath the twin suns, its silver streets alive with movement and quiet energy. For weeks, Alex had walked among the women, learning their ways, sharing their joys, and respecting their boundaries. Now he could feel a profound change, not just in himself but in the society around him. The cautious glances had softened into smiles, and whispers of uncertainty had been replaced with laughter and warmth. Celira was beginning to awaken in ways that had not been seen for over a century. The elders summoned him once more to the council hall. The space felt familiar now, no longer intimidating but alive with history and wisdom. One by one, the women spoke. Some thanked him quietly, acknowledging the patience and respect he had shown. Others admitted the fear they had felt at first, and how that fear had slowly given way to hope. Alex listened, humbled by their words, realizing that he had been a catalyst for change simply by being present, by choosing understanding over control. Finally, the eldest spoke. Her voice carried the weight of centuries, yet it was gentle. "You have reminded us," she said, "that connection is not a weakness. We have thrived for generations without men, but now we see that life is not only about survival, it is about trust, hope, and the sharing of hearts. You have walked among us with respect, humility, and care. For this, we honor you." Alex felt his chest tighten. He had come expecting observation, perhaps friendship, but not this deep acknowledgement. For the first time, he truly understood the enormity of what had occurred. His arrival had changed Celira, yes, but the women had changed as well, not because of him, but because they allowed themselves to feel, to hope, and to trust again. As he left the council hall, Lila and Mara approached him. Lila smiled warmly, her eyes reflecting pride and affection. "You have done more than any of us could have imagined," she said softly. "You have reminded us that life can be full in ways we had forgotten." Mara took his hand, a simple gesture that spoke volumes. "You have given us permission to hope," she whispered, "to embrace what we thought lost, to feel again." Alex looked at both of them, the weight of emotion overwhelming yet comforting. He realized that this was not about him as a man, but about connection, trust, and understanding. He had arrived as a stranger, yet he had become part of their lives, not to lead, not to dominate, but to walk beside them, respecting who they were while helping them rediscover the fullness of life. In the days that followed, the city of Celira transformed quietly. Women moved with renewed energy, exploring emotions they had long suppressed. Laughter rang out more freely, and the art, music, and rituals of their society became richer, fuller, and more expressive. Even those who had initially been wary began to participate, finding joy in the gentle companionship Alex offered. One evening, Alex stood atop a balcony overlooking the city. The twin suns dipped toward the horizon, casting long silver shadows across the streets. Around him, the women moved gracefully through the city, some pausing to glance at him, others absorbed in conversation or ritual. And yet, all of them carried a subtle change in their posture, their gaze, and their expressions, a quiet acknowledgement that something extraordinary had occurred. For Alex, the feeling was bittersweet. He had come seeking knowledge and understanding, and he had found far more. He had witnessed a society awaken, hearts open, and trust flourish after 105 years of solitude. He had not forced change, nor had he demanded it. He had simply been present, respectful, and compassionate, and that had been enough. As the night deepened and the moons rose, Alex felt a sense of peace. Celira was no longer just a city of survivors. It had become a city of life, emotion, and hope. The alien women had endured, thrived, and now embraced the possibility of connection once more. And he too had found a place not just in their society, but in their hearts. In that quiet moment, he realized the truth of their world. Survival alone was not enough. True life came from connection, trust, and the courage to feel, even after centuries of isolation. Celira had waited 105 years for change, and when it arrived, it was not with force or dominance, but with presence, patience, and understanding. And, as Alex looked out over the glowing city, he smiled softly, knowing that this was not an ending. It was a beginning. A new era had begun for Celira, one where hearts could open freely, trust could be rebuilt, and life could be lived fully once again. Humanity had arrived not to conquer but to inspire, and in doing so, Celira would never be the same.